Welcome back. Today's program is going to feature traditional yoga poses done on your mat. Now, certainly you can modify with a seated position using a chair or even a soft surface, but our theme for this week is acceptance. So we'll be talking a lot about modifications, challenges, and even triumphs with our practice from week to week. So let's go ahead and get started. We're actually going to begin on our backs in a nice comfortable reclined position. And of course, you choose what comfortable means for you, whether you'd like to have your shoulders or your head propped or even your legs. And if reclining on your back, again, takes some time, you can always roll to your elbow, onto the shoulder, and then to your back, helping to protect the lower lumbar region. And then as you settle in, let's go ahead and invite the eyes to close. And we're going to take a nice deep cleansing breath, kind of stepping away from the busyness of the world and into yourselves, out of the head and into the body. You can even release your arms down to your sides with your palms facing up, or extending through the legs, externally rotating from the major joints at the shoulders and the hips, coming into true Shavasana. So let's start with the face as you relax the brow. Start to soften the jaw and the cheeks, making sure there's no clenching or grinding by leaving that little cushion of space between the teeth. And then let's start to lengthen the neck, just lowering the shoulders away from the ears and finding some softness in that space between the shoulder blades. And now with the lengthened neck, go ahead and rotate your head to the right without forcing, just allowing gravity to tug at your ear. Becoming aware of the soft tissues that support the head. And now slowly return to center, and we're just going to switch sides. Again, nice and easy, but maybe take note of any differences in the presence or release of tension on this side compared to the first. And head back to neutral. Now let's start to awaken the hands as we rotate the wrists, wiggle the fingers, and maybe even give the hands a good squeeze. And then gently allow the hands to come to rest. And let's do the same with the feet. Start to wiggle the toes and rotate the ankles. Even give your toes a nice scrunch, especially if they've been trapped in your shoes and socks all day. Now, let's direct the gaze a little deeper inward to your breathing. Maybe take a moment to observe your normal, natural rhythm. Notice the rate and depth, the pace and length, even the ease or difficulty today. And maybe take a moment and place your left hand on your abdomen, right over the umbilicus or your belly button, and take the right hand and place it right under the collarbones at the upper chest so that you can feel your breath. Noticing if there's any movement under one or both hands. And when you're ready, with the mouth closed, drawing the air only in and out through the nose, let's begin to make that transition into the diaphragmatic breath. So when you're ready, on the inhale, feel your abdomen distending and rising toward the ceiling. Feeling the hand lifting as well. And then start to observe that openness and expansion in the rib cage. And of course, that lift in the chest. And then gently release it in reverse so that the right hand is lowering. The rib cage returns back to neutral. And at the very end, feel the abdomen draw up, helping to assist the diaphragm in removing that stale residual air. So taking your time and just creating this rhythmic flow, kind of regarding your breath much like a metronome, which sets the tone and the pace for a piece of music. But in our case today, it's going to be the foundation for your practice. So go ahead and release the arms back down to your sides. And let's focus on the next 5 breaths. as we prepare to begin. Good. Now very slowly start to rotate your forearms so that your palms are face down along your sides. And if you started in full Shavasana, let's go ahead and bend one knee at a time, sliding those heels back so that you can root through the soles of the feet and maybe make the adjustments to ensure that your lower back is comfortable as well. And we want the thighs to be roughly parallel but not touching. Knees will be stacked over the ankles. And we're going to revisit our bridge flow today as a way to stimulate, again, our warm-up. So on an inhale, start to lift with the hips. And we're going to hold it at the top end, just so that you can reconnect with the sensations of the muscles that we're targeting. So maybe first notice your pressure points. Of course, we have the foundation of our arms here, and they're actively reaching for the heels. Shoulder blades also are making contact, as well as the base of the head. But then I want you to notice your feet. We want all four corners of the soles of the feet firmly rooted, but your toes should be nice and light. And then let's not forget those powerhouse muscles of the lower extremities. So feel the glutes and the hamstrings, but even noticing that energy into the lower back as well. So let's make this dynamic. Exhale, slowly, gently, softly lower the hips. And as soon as they touch down, we're going to inhale. Lift them once again without rushing or racing. And moving no faster than the rhythm of your breath. And maybe take note if there's any stiffness to start. And with each repetition, maybe noticing that stiffness or tightness starting to dissipate, slowly melting away. And that's the neat part about your warm-up. It's designed to help prepare the body at a lower intensity for our moderate intensity workout. And yes, yoga is still an exercise, so we want to make sure that we're going about the practice safely. So give me two more, and we're going to tweak it. Now, on that final one, let's lift and hold at the top end. Now, this is a familiar range of motion for you, so it's important that we welcome maybe little bouts of challenges. So start to shift that weight into your left foot, and we're going to elevate the right. Doesn't matter how high, but notice what muscles had to engage to create that lift. The arms a little bit more controlled. So let's exhale, release the foot, and then lower the hips. Nice. Inhale, lift the hips once again into bridge, finding that balance. And then shift the weight into the right foot and lift the left. And again, doesn't matter how high, but noticing again how that opposite side is helping to provide balance and stability. Good. And release and lower. Now we're going to attempt to link that one breath, one movement, but I want you to take your time, and it's going to feel almost like marching. So when you're ready, let's inhale, lift. And we'll elevate the right foot, exhale, lower, and release the hips. Good. Inhale, lift the hips, and elevate the left foot, lower the foot, and release the hips. And take your time. You can pause a little longer if you'd like in between each repetition to help find your balance. And certainly if it's not comfortable, you can simply continue on with our traditional bridge lift and flow without elevating the feet. let's do one more round on each side. You're going to feel a little bit more energy into the glutes and the lower back, which is completely normal. Nice. And as you make your way to that final side, let's go ahead and release the hips. Now we need to bring the knees into the chest, helping to decompress the muscles that we targeted in the lower lumbar region. So if it feels good simply to hug the knees in, you can pause and stay there, or you can give me some slow circles. And switch the rotation. Good. Knees back to center, and we're going to cross at the ankles, and you can let the knees open slightly. If it's not comfortable to have the heels elevated, you can even rest your heels maybe on the sofa or a stool, or certainly you can release your feet. But we're going to activate the core, so the lower and upper abs. But I want you to be very mindful of the lower back. And sometimes when our feet are making contact with the floor, it can exaggerate that lordotic arch. So take note of my hand underneath my back. We don't want that space. So give me a pelvic tilt and imagine that you're trying to squeeze a sponge in the lower lumbar region so that your back remains flat. So when you're ready, on an exhale, we're going to lift the head and shoulders, keeping the elbows open wide. Good. And slowly release. Excellent. Exhale to lift. Inhale, lower. Again, taking your time. If by chance holding the head is not comfortable, or even the shoulder position with the elbows open wide, again, you can release your feet and place your hands on the thighs and just reach your fingertips toward the edges of your knees. But don't forget, pushing the back into the floor. Nice, and you should feel that contraction from the base of your rib cage all the way down to the hip bones. And sometimes you may even notice the torso kind of shaking a little bit, and that's a good thing. That just means that you have awakened the proper set of muscle groups. Give me two more. And just for giggles, let's go ahead and lift and hold it. Again, through the weeks, you should be noticing improvements in your strengths. And slowly lower. Let's go ahead and uncross, and we'll release just the right foot, crossing that left ankle over the right knee. Left arm down to your side. We'll keep the right hand behind the head, and on an exhale, let's lift and twist. Inhale, slowly return to start. Exhale, lift and twist. Inhale, lower. Again, taking your time without rushing or racing. And we want the elbow open wide to help maximize that rotational effort. Give me three more on this side. And as you make your way to that final round, let's lift, twist, and hold it. Again, deep breaths. Even in the midst of a challenging pose or flow, you want to still maintain the rhythm of the breathing, which helps to keep the mind and body calm. Let's go ahead and slowly release. Nice. We're going to keep the legs crossed. Let's lift them as a unit, coming into our pretzel stretch, that figure four. And always take a moment to assess how the knee and the hip are responding. And if you'd like to increase the intensity, you can always explore the bind, holding on underneath the thigh, gently pulling in, making sure the shoulders are relaxed, and noticing how this stretch affects not only the hips, but also the muscles of the lower back. And maybe even recognizing improvements in your range of motion since the first time you were introduced to these poses and stretches to now. Good, and we're going to slowly release. Let's uncross, and we're just going to switch sides. So take your time, cross that right ankle over the left knee, left hand behind the head, right arm down to your side. And when you're ready, on an exhale, we're going to lift and twist to the right. We want to lead with the shoulder, keeping the elbow open wide. And inhale, slowly return to start. Exhale, lift and twist. Inhale, release. Again, taking your time. Now, the neat part about your yogic breath is that it does complement your movements. So remember, any pose that requires us to fold or twist or curl in, we're basically assisting in helping the diaphragm to release that air from the lungs. And any pose that requires us to open and lift or extend and reach, we're basically creating space for breath to flow in. So that's when we inhale. So let's do 2 more. Lift, twist, and hold. And just because we're holding a pose, we never want to hold the breath, so still maintain the depth of the breath. Good, and release. Now, we're going to keep the legs in this position. Let's just come into our pretzel stretch, so lifting them together. And again, assessing how the knee and the hip are responding. And you can always explore the bind, relaxing through the shoulders and only using the strength of your arms to gently pull in. And keeping with our theme of acceptance this week, maybe even noticing how these poses feel, whether it's after a busy week of exercise or activities of daily living, which can cause tension and maybe a little delayed onset of muscle soreness. And that's okay. Acceptance is being aware and present of what we're feeling at any given moment. And of course, modifying accordingly. So think about your energy level as well. Good, and we're going to slowly release. Now let's uncross. We'll bring the knees back into the chest, wrap the arms around the knees, slow circles. And switch the rotation. Knees back to center. Now we're going to make our transition to seated. So just in the same manner that we did to recline, let's go ahead and roll to one side and use the strength of your arms to slowly rise up. And you can come into easy pose with the legs crossed, or you can uncross them with a wide angle seat, maintaining a soft bend in the knees. But let's open up the back here. Hands on the front edges of the knees. We're going to make some circles. So taking your time, very slowly, start to explore how the lower lumbar region feels today. And staying within your comfort zone. So paying close attention to any little twinges or general tightness or fatigue. Now let's switch the rotation. Good. Give me 2 more circles. And let's come back to a nice, tall, neutral spine. Now, if your legs are crossed, let's switch the position. So whichever leg was in front will now be tucked behind. And from here, we're going to create some nice lateral movements with the spine, because the spine can actually move in 6 wonderful different directions. But unfortunately, sometimes we don't exercise those options. So I want you to think of kind of a wave-like action, and we're going to start on that right side, leading with your rib cage toward the wall, followed by the shoulder, and then the head. And then we're going to switch directions. So rib cage, shoulder, and then the head. And just taking your time. Maybe even pushing gently into the inner knees because we want to keep those sit bones firmly rooted as well. And this is going to give you a yummy stretch along the side body. And I always chuckle because sometimes you don't realize just how tight you are until you get into some of these stretches or flows. So give me 2 more in each direction. Good. And as you complete that final round, let's slowly return to a upright spine. Let's go ahead and uncross the legs, and we're going to rock the knees from side to side, just loosening up the hips. Good. And coming back to center. Now, we're going to make our transition to hands and knees or kneeling. So if you're taking care of your knees, remember you can always fold your mat over. So just sweep your feet behind you. And to fold the mat, you would just grab a portion of it and create a little bit of a bubble, which adds some layers, and you can rest your knees. Or even for future practices, you can use those handy dandy gardening mats or even a folded towel. And we're going to stack the shoulders over the wrists, hips over the knees, spreading the fingers nice and wide. And we're going to revisit our cat and cow. So on an inhale, let's lift the chin, swaying the back, tilting the tailbone up. And on an exhale, nice arch in the back, tucking the chin, shifting the hips forward. And again, slow and steady. No rushing or racing here. We're just looking to smooth out any tension that may be present in the small of the back. It's also a good opportunity to stretch out the abdominals, especially after we targeted them as part of our practice. So give me 2 more. And of course, if you'd simply like to pause in any direction and just breathe into those stretches, feel free. But once you've made your way to that final cat arch, we're going to pass through that neutral table, bringing the big toes together, knees open wide. And let's take a seat into child's pose. Extending through the arms. And remember, if you're taking care of the hips or the knees, you can always rest on the forearms with your hips elevated. But if you'd like to settle in deeper, send those sit bones as far back toward the heels as comfortably possible. And then you can choose to maybe cross the arms under the head or extend the arms out and release the forehead to your mat. But whatever you choose, I want you to focus on that nice, deep stretch from the base of the neck down to the lower back, kind of following the line of the spine, or more specifically, the muscles on either side of the spine. So you have your rhomboids and those spinal erectors. But even noticing how the hips, the knees, and the ankles feel. Good. Now with arms outstretched, let's inhale, slowly rise back up into your table, reset the alignment. And from here, we're going to inhale, lift that left hand up toward the ceiling, nice energetic reach. Taking note of how the shoulder feels, and you can certainly adjust the range of motion. And we're going to exhale, tap the hand to the mat, and inhale, lift it right back up. Exhale, tap. Inhale, reach. Good. Slow and steady. Give me 2 more. And we'll lift and hold at the top end. Now, on an exhale, we're going to thread the needle. So taking that left arm, you're going to send it through the space between the right arm and the right thigh, releasing the left shoulder and maybe the side of the face. So you probably notice I have a large pillow here. You can use a standard sofa cushion or even a throw pillow if you'd like to have some elevation instead. And this is a deep stretch for the shoulder in the lower back. So you have the option to take your free arm, in this case it's going to be your right arm, and extend it forward, or you can cross it behind the back. but breathing deeply wherever you are, even if you decide just to try it for one breath to test it out. Good. And we'll slowly release the bind if you found it, using the strength of that arm to help you unthread the needle, returning back to that neutral table position. Now, from here, we're going to anchor with the left, and on an inhale, reach with the right. And again, just even out the hips, taking note of the range of motion in the neck and shoulder. And you don't want to force it, just staying within your comfort zone. But we need to warm things up. So let's exhale, tap the hand, inhale, reach. Exhale, tap. Inhale, lift. Yes, we're lengthening the muscles that support the torso and the shoulder girdle, but we're also sneaking in a little strength in that base arm. So give me one more lift and we'll pause and hold. And then let's exhale, thread the needle, sending that arm through, releasing the shoulder and the side of the face. Again, if you'd like a little lift, feel free to provide it. And you can extend the arm forward or crossing it behind the back. Breathing deeply wherever you are. Good. And slowly release, using the strength of that arm to help you unthread the needle. Now give your spine a deep cat arch, breathing into your back. And return to your neutral table position. If you created cushion for the knees, go ahead and stretch your mat out so you have a nice firm flat surface. And we're just going to walk the knees to the left and lower your hips to the right. So you're on the right hip, but we're going to release the right shin forward. So you're kind of creating this little zigzag position with the legs. I want you to make the adjustment. You can bring that rear knee forward. You can also adjust the foot placement, but ideally you want to have your forward shin roughly parallel to the front edge of your mat. Now, this pose is called pigeon. It's actually a modified version of the traditional pose. And all we're going to do is fold forward, stopping as soon as you feel a comfortable amount of tension in the hip. Now, once again, if you have a stack of pillows or a folded up sofa cushion, you can even rest your forearms and elbows on it to create some elevation. But this is where we tap into that deep breath to help keep us present and calm. And taking note of what you're feeling and how you're feeling in this position. And as I mentioned earlier, sometimes our activities of daily living will create tension naturally because our hips are weight-bearing, load-bearing muscles, and it's natural for them to be tight. So coming to your practice with that level of acceptance, but also recognizing that the more you come to these poses and unroll your mat, the more you'll see improvements in your range of motion and flexibility. So let's go ahead and slowly rise up. And we're just going to lean to the right to sweep that left foot forward. So your left knee will be bent. We'll place the left hand behind the back. And let's continue the rotation. Just sitting nice and tall, relaxing through the shoulders, breathing into the twist. If it's too much to rest on that base hand, you can always give the knee a hug with both arms. And rotate your head to look forward. Let's unwind and unthread, and we'll need to do the same thing on the opposite side. So we're going to do a little break dancing. Make sure you're smiling, but we're going to sweep the feet to the right so that you're on your left hip, but we're going to keep that left shin forward. And once again, make the adjustments for that rear knee and hip. Again, if it's not comfortable for you, you can certainly return into easy pose or simply fold forward with both knees stacked. But when you're ready on an exhale, we're going to settle in to our pigeon. If you'd like that elevation, feel free to explore. But just like all of our unilateral movements, meaning one side at a time, maybe noticing anything different on this side compared to the first, without judgment, just as an observation. Because we all have a dominant and non-dominant side, and we all have a tight and maybe a not so tight side, a little bit more flexible. Good. And slowly rise up. And once again, we're going to lean to the left so you can sweep that right foot forward, right hand behind the back, and let's continue the rotation. Sitting tall, relaxing through the shoulders. And again, if it's not comfortable for that wrist, you can always hug the knee. Breathing deeply, working with that resistance, and taking note of how the breath affects the stretch internally. Good. Inhale, rotate your head to look forward. Exhale, unwind and unthread. Beautiful. Give a quick peek behind you to make sure that you have enough space. We're going to make our transition back to the back. So once again, to keep it safe, we're going to roll to one side, lower onto your elbow, and then slowly guide yourself to your shoulder so that you can roll to the back. And just take a moment to allow the lower back to relax. It's going to feel a little tight, a little more activity today, and certainly different transitions lower to the floor. So let's go ahead and bring the knees in one at a time. And you can open your arms out into a T or keep the elbows bent, and we're going to release the knees to the floor on the right, tucking them in and letting them go. And just relax through the shoulders as you rotate your head to the left. Once again, send your breath into those nooks and crannies. Good. Inhale, bring the knees back through center and take your time as we switch sides. So on an exhale, float the knees to the floor on the left. Again, tucking them in and letting them go. Relaxing through the shoulders. And if it's comfortable for the head and neck, you can rotate your head to the right. But with eyes closed, breathe deeply, enjoying the sensations of this final spinal twist. Good. Inhale, bring the knees back through center, but keep them tucked in just for a moment. Hands on the top edges of your knees. And let's exhale. Tuck in nice and tight to your cannonball. So lifting the head and shoulders away from the floor. And then slowly, gently, softly release your feet. And from here, you get to choose how you'd like to close out your practice. You could stay right here with the knees bent and the soles of the feet rooted with your hands maybe lightly resting on your abdomen. Or you can extend the arms out and extend through the legs in full Shavasana, ending today where we began. But hopefully things feel a little different. So go ahead and invite the eyes to close, and let's take another deep cleansing breath, but this time returning to your normal natural rate. And softening the face with a smile, honoring yourselves for taking this time out today to do something just for you. Now give yourself permission to truly release as you savor the fruits of your practice. Simply take rest. slowly start to awaken your extremities. Wiggling the fingers and the toes, and rotate the wrists and the ankles. And then slowly sweep the arms back behind you for one final torso stretch as you reach through the fingers and toes, arching the back, taking a deep breath here. And then relax the spine, drawing the knees in one at a time, wrapping your arms around them for another big hug. And then slowly roll to one side, holding here for 3 deep, easy breaths, preparing the mind and body to make that transition back into your day. And then only when you're ready, using the strength of your arms, let's slowly rise up to a comfortable seated position at the head of your mat. Great job today. Please stay tuned for your mindful moment. This week's mindful prompt is acceptance, and your yoga practice is a safe space to dwell and reflect on where and who you are today as part of this wellness journey. Acceptance may also include thoughts on your personal progress, challenges, and triumphs along the way. So please let your gaze soften or invite the eyes to close and take the next 2 minutes to sit quietly and reflect on what acceptance means for you.